Well, since I just completed one short film, that means it's time to talk about the ones that never were. Filmmaking is hard, like really, really hard. At least that's what every filmmaker in the world says, right? And you know what? They're right. But one thing that isn't obvious is the failures. The gut-wrenching, tear-inducing failures. Something that is impossible to prepare for and rarely see coming. A film project is a big commitment, sacrifices hours and hours and days, weeks and months, possibly years of our lives. To have done all that work and it all falls through, fucking sucks. Which brings us to the topic of this video you're watching now. My first failure, or technically my first two failures. So let's rewind this all the way back to 2012. I was a fresh-faced 14-year-old kid with hopes and dreams of making a zombie movie. This was at the height of The Walking Dead, might I add, and I called it Attack of the Zombies. This was before I got into high school, so there was no video production class to speak of. There were school announcements that students did at the time, but that was kind of a closed club. You could get in it, but I was an extremely shy kid, and while I had a few opportunities in middle school to actually show my work, I was still really uncomfortable sharing this passion of mine. That year, I befriended someone who was also really creative and interested in music and wanted to help out with this zombie film. He managed to gather up a couple of his friends to be in the film, and I thought, great! I got this. Well, my friend that I mentioned doesn't come off looking great in this video, so we'll just call him Tycho. Funnily enough, one of Tycho's friends was also named Tycho. I'm not making this up. Truth is stranger than fiction, so we'll just call him Tycho 2. Anyway, the first thing to go wrong was the casting. Now, myself and Tycho were also going to be the main characters in the movie, but there was also going to be a leading lady. That person was actually interested in acting and was friendly enough. So I wrote the entire script. I don't remember how long it actually was, but then something happened. Tycho informed me that that girl was no longer available to be a part of the film. According to him, she was actually getting braces that summer that we were going to shoot it. I admit at the time I was a bit skeptical, but still I took him at his word. The actual reason she didn't want to be in the film was because her and Tycho were actually dating, and they had broken up and they didn't want to be around each other. I was pretty bummed about that, but I thought, okay, I can make this work. So I retooled the script so it would just be like a buddy film, and I was still feeling pretty good. Alas, it was all in vain. That school year came to an end, and a week before we were supposed to start shooting, Tycho backed out. Why, you may ask? Well, according to him, Tycho 2 didn't want to do it anymore. And if Tycho 2 didn't want to do it anymore, then he, Tycho 1, didn't want to do it anymore either. There is more to that story, but it gets pretty personal, so I won't go into too much detail. However, some of my longtime viewers may recall that I actually touched on some of this stuff in some of my older videos, and actually a short film that I made called Passion Never Stops. So essentially, this video is the backstory to my student short film, which we'll discuss later. So that film completely fell through, and let me tell you, I was straight up depressed. Which led me to write a story about a guy who grew up in an abusive family, finally snaps and goes on a killing spree. That film's title later became Nothing Personal. Yes, I finally get to talk about this. I spent that whole summer writing the script and taking elements from a previous project I did and making a somewhat compelling narrative. I sat on it for over a year as I was entering high school, where things really changed for me. I enrolled in my school's Intro to Broadcasting class, where I got my first mentor, Don Wettrick, and made some great friends that I still have to this day. The quality of my work was improving, and I had people who were happy to watch it. So I spent the next summer rewriting, reworking the entire script. My sophomore year came, and I started hyping it up. This is the script for my short film. It is titled Nothing Personal. This is my first attempt in a short film in about over a year, and it's not going to be easy. I'll be learning a lot from producing this short film. I, for one, am very excited about this. A new step for me in my life, and you
you guys are going to be right there with me.
I was going to spend that year prepping this short film. I put up casting calls on Craigslist, I was looking for locations, everything. At the time, I was doing a show called Bolt's Tutorials, and I was tailoring the episodes of that show around the pre-production of Nothing Personal. But then something happened. My grades that year weren't very good, and I was grounded from doing any other projects outside of class until my grades improved. Which was the first roadblock for this film, and revealed a weakness of mine. I'm kind of a workaholic, and tended to take on more than I could handle, which admittedly is a flaw that persists to this very day. Fast forward to the second semester, my friend Ryan Long and I had just completed our first documentary film festival entry, Out of Darkness. Fortunately, I had gotten my grades back up to where I could get back to work with the pre-production of Nothing Personal. But if you think I learned from taking on too much, think again. I was trying to balance school, making a short film, making a tutorial show about that short film, making production vlogs about that short film, on top of whatever else I was doing in video production class, on top of whatever else was going on in school. What I should have done was put the tutorial show and the production vlogs on hiatus and just focus on school and the short film. It still would have been a lot, but not having to put together a produced show would have helped. I mean, seriously, who am I? Film Riot? Finally, with the help of my good friend Ryan and a few other classmates, I was able to get a casting crew together. Sophomore year came to an end, and everything was going great. Until it wasn't. My friend who was going to be the main character, who we'll be referring to as Trevor, was starting a new job at the same time, and his girlfriend, who was also going to be in the film, was loaded with an impossible work schedule. At which point, I came to a very heartbreaking conclusion. History had repeated itself. The day before we started shooting, by the way, it all came tumbling down. To be 100% honest, I was broken. This was a massive failure on my part. Thankfully, I had Ryan there to console me, saying that it's only a failure if you give it up. Fast forward to my junior year, where I released Passion Never Stops, which, while I don't think it's aged well, it still holds a special place for me. After that, I made Dark Force, which was riddled with all sorts of problems, but my passion for filmmaking never ended despite this crushing defeat. As for Nothing Personal, you might be wondering why I never made it later, or will I ever make it? Looking back, I'm not very satisfied with the script. I mean, obviously, you're not always going to like the things you did in high school, but even explaining the story of the film itself, I just go, not interested. The moral of this video, which is something a lot of filmmakers have had to learn the hard way, don't get sentimental with your projects. I wanted to make Nothing Personal because it helped me get through a hard time, and I wanted to see it through to the end. Being passionate and enthusiastic is wonderful, but don't become so attached to it as if it's your romantic partner. Because when and if it falls through, in my experience, that attachment will completely vanish. And that was the most important film I never made. Can you relate? Has this ever happened to you? What kind of experiences do you have with failed projects? I think it's important to talk about this stuff, so let me know down in the comments below. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.